Hello everybody, this is Josh Play Plays, and today we're gonna talk and review Cities Skylines 2, almost at its second year anniversary. And it's very important to talk about this game while we play with another city that I have that I play by myself. Because at its release, Cities Skylines 2 was not well received, and it was very deserved because the game had a lot of bugs, had a lot of issues, and we are going to talk about how maybe some of these issues have been solved and maybe others haven't, and what this game actually does really, really well or better than Cities Skylines 1. First of all, as always, we need to talk a little bit about what type of game releases we are getting lately. We can either have the Cyberpunk 2077 release with a lot of bugs, a lot of issues, or the Tears of the Kingdom release, which basically had no issues, no major updates needed to play the game. And understandably, of course, we can see there are different publishers and developers, so that's understandable. But at the same time, we have, of course, one of the biggest game franchises, which is GTA, that has been taking 12 years, almost 13 years to release their sequel. So yes, we understand the processes, the money, budgets and all that, but we also need to understand how we are seeing these type of game releases. And also we need to talk about Cities Skylines 1, which the developers and all of you that keep playing the game are keeping it alive. You know, we've been getting content creator packs, DLCs, so that game is very, very much alive. I personally don't go back to it because I feel like it's a little bit difficult for me to go back after playing mainly this game. There's a lot of things that this game took from maybe from some mods. Of course, not everything and not everything works perfectly. And so for me, it's a little bit difficult to go back into Cities Skylines 1. But I'm sure that if I get the time, we can have another little series in the near future. So first, let's talk about some of the issues that have mostly been fixed for this game. And the biggest one is game performance. I definitely noticed a big difference when that big update was released almost a year ago or so, a couple of months ago, many months ago, which definitely improved the performance of this game. Even with cities with 200, even 300,000 people, it's not as sluggish as it used to be. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, you can go into our Houstonville series, which I'm sure can make a big return once this new update that's going to be released on the 28th, on October 28th. Maybe we should go back and continue that city and then let New Paris rest for a little bit, take a little time off. And so yeah, the game performance seems to be a whole lot better than what it used to be more sluggish. Of course, I don't have the best setup, but even with mine, I could definitely feel that there was a whole lot of improvement when talking about the game. So I do feel like in that case, we did see a very, very important improvement for this game. Also, some bugs have been fixed, and this is like a double one because there's a lot of ones that have been fixed and there's a lot of ones that haven't. For example, we used to have a lot of issues with residential buildings that were abandoned, even though the demand for those residential buildings was high. And again, you can go back into Houstonville to look at what I'm talking about. And so those buildings, were abandoned, but the area was, had enough uh, schools, enough parks, safety, hospitals, and it was still being abandoned. And so that was fixed. However, there's a lot of bugs that still have been found in this game. For example, I don't think in here that's the case, but there's sometimes, like here, I don't know if these people are actually waiting for a taxi, right? But they just stand there and they don't do anything. So it's gonna be in that case. And sometimes it's not happening right now, but a lot of people just stand in this intersection, right? And it's not the only one, of course. There's some more ones. There's times where people just stand in the middle. I guess that another car blocks the way, and then the citizen can't walk anymore, but they just stay there, right? So they don't move, and you can have really, really, really bad areas where there's a lot of traffic, and it's mainly because of that. Let's see if we can have another one in here. Not really, right? So that's good. But no, we still have those type of issues, right? That there's a lot of people just stuck in the middle. In here, they're flowing nicely, but sometimes they're just stuck, and the traffic is just really, really, really bad. Another bug that I was hoping I would have in this city, well, not hoping that to have it, but to show it to you, is that sometimes with these buildings and some other buildings, you're gonna have an icon, which I think I saw in here, definitely. So you're gonna have this icon, which means no pedestrian access. That's something that I don't know why that happens. In here, it's obvious, right, that there's some shenanigans going on. And of course, they're mostly also where we place curved roads, but there's been areas, like in this case in here, where I had that happen, and there's also that bug that appears, and it seems to be mostly for the mixed zone, the commercial and residential zone, right? And of course, you have some bugs with a lot of other stuff, but at least they seem to try to fix them, and that's always a good thing. That's always nice to see the developers try at least their best with this game. That again, it's getting better. Also, tourism. Let's not forget that at the beginning we had an issue with tourism. I don't think any hotels were being built until that big update. Again, I think it was about a year ago, and that's when things started to get a little bit better. I still believe that tourism is broken, and I'm gonna talk about it in our next group of issues in this video. But overall, I think that it's trying to work. I still don't think that it does that well. And also, something that plagued the game was a lack of architectural or building diversity. And what do I mean by that? That basically we mostly didn't have any of the region packs. So we only had very little options. And that's something that we do need to congratulate the team for doing, is creating all these region packs. I know, of course, that there's a lot of people involved, but I think all these region packs have been able to create a better experience on this game. Just having different architectural diversity. Like in here we have the USA Southwestern. I think in here we have the Northeast. In here we have the Eastern European. Of course, in In our city of New Paris, we have the little nice German area. This is all French. I call it the French Quarter. In here we have Chinese, I think, or just regular high density. We also have mixed. And so I think everything that has been added to the game in terms of region packs has worked great. As you can see, everything looks great. I definitely love the German region pack. More the French, sorry. The French region pack added a lot. If you visited Paris or France, especially Paris, this is really what I remember walking through, right? All these different buildings. I think that it adds a lot to the game because you're basically able just to build any type of city that you want in terms of architecture, right? If you only want to do French, you can only do French. If you only want to do Southwestern, you can only do Southwestern. So that helps a lot. Again, we have the Mediterranean. We have the Urban Promenade. We have the China region pack. We have the German region pack. We have the Eastern European region pack. We have the French, Japanese, the Netherlands. The Northeast. Then we have the Netherlands. We have the Southwest, and we have the UK. I think that everything is very, very helpful. And of course, we have all the extra schools, all the extra fire departments, all the extra police departments, and so on and so forth. So I do believe that the region packs did help a lot to make this game better. That's mostly overall. I know that a lot of people do the mods and everything. I think that's also something that was fixed and that helps a lot of people. The only quote-unquote mods that I download have been some maps, because that's something that I'm going to talk in our next little group of issues. There's not that many official maps, right? So I know that's also going to be kind of fixed in the next update. And so again, overall, I think these issues, the performance, the bugs, the tourism, and the architectural diversity was fixed with the updates and region pack releases, all of them for free. So that's very, very nice. That's great that the developers and publisher understood what the game was going through. But I still think that there are issues that this game needs to take a look at and work on. Some of them will be fixed apparently with the update that's gonna be released on the 28th of October. And so the first one is bicycles. I don't want to criticize the developers for saying that citizen animations are what messed up putting bicycles in the game. I think that that's something weird to say, oh, the animations for your walking pedestrians didn't work, because that's basically what the release is. And so I kind of, I don't know, I think that's something that the game should have had from the beginning. That's something basic and something that we had, of course. A lot of things that we're asking from City Skylines 2 are things that we had even with DLC on City Skylines 1, and I think that's the main thing. There are some basic things that we don't have that people, of course, complain about it, and so do I. So the first one is bicycles. I think that was something basic that needed to happen, that needed to be built, that needed to be part of the game, and it's not here. They're not here yet. Of course, they say that it's going to be released on the 28th on the new update. We'll see how that works, right? We'll see how that goes. I hope so, because I know it's going to change a lot of things. I keep saying that I'm sure traffic will get a whole lot, well, not a whole lot, but some better, to some degree better, because a lot of people that are walking on the crosswalks, that are stopping traffic, I'm sure that it's gonna be faster for some citizens to actually get through the crosswalk and cross the road and allow more cars to keep going. So I also think that's gonna help, and it's definitely gonna help with traffic. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna wanna take their bike, the tram and the bike, and so I do believe that that's something that's gonna be very, very, very helpful. And so I do think that that's something that it's gonna work really, really, really well. The next thing that I'm gonna complain about is gonna be the park areas. I also feel like that's something very basic that should have been ported over into this game, because, and that's one of the things that we're gonna praise about, because of the maps and the areas and the proportions of the game, and the fact that there's a lot of spaces that you wish you could do your own little park or your own little nature preserve, especially the nature preserve, because I think that there's some, let's say, little islands that you would want to make a park, a state park, right? And that's not working. That doesn't happen. Of course you can do it. You can zone in here, but it doesn't work the same. And I'm also gonna complain about not having, not even assets for an amusement park or a zoo. I really don't understand why that is. It's something very basic. Of course, you don't want to support having a zoo, which kind of did with the DLCs, with the parks DLCs on City Skylines 1. I understand, but you can do an amusement park, right? And also a beach. I do believe that we can have, at the very, very, very least, a beach asset for this game. There's a lot of shoreline that's being wasted, and the piers, I don't think they're actually helping that much yet. We can take a look at at one of the piers, and I can assure you there's gonna be nobody in here using this, right? Again, it's supposed to help with leisure, sure, but it doesn't help with tourism, which I completely don't get, right? Again, tourism is broken, and we'll continue with that in a bit. And I feel like we do need a beach asset. Look at all the shoreline that we have in here, right? And of course, there's people that, and there's some really cool maps where people go into the surfaces, which is another great addition into here. They go into sand and they do their really cool, really nice areas in here, right? But that's still not a beach. You can do whatever you want, you can say whatever you want. That's not a beach, and that doesn't really help, because it doesn't help with the leisure or tourism, right? So it's pointless. It doesn't help. It's not good, and it's something that needs to be fixed. And I don't get why it is so difficult to at least do an asset, right? At least, but I have no idea why that is an issue. And again, tourism doesn't work. Tourism, like for example, I'm trying to make this little island, since of course I cannot make in a nature park, to make it like a tourism thing. And so of course I have the Ferris wheel, and I have the botanical garden, and I have this nice plaza, and so on and so forth. And it's just difficult to get that to work properly, because even though it's green, right, not all of these buildings cater to tourism. Like this one is for furniture, plastics, convenience food. That I think that's fine, right? Convenience food, beverage also fine, furniture, textiles, and so I think that's still missing. I think that's still an issue. I mean, we can even take a look at the statistics. And if we go to tourists, income from tourists, hotel rooms, I really don't think that's something that's taken care of, right? So I hope this can be fixed. Another thing that I would like to complain about are the city statistics. I feel like these are not, they are useful, but they could be a whole more useful. For example, there's no information in here about water or about electricity or about garbage or about just very little in here about the about people in terms of um, I mean, education is here, and that's the only one that actually kind of works, or that actually works well. Same with crime rate. But sometimes I do want to see, for example, in here, what is the mix of the power that we're generating? You know, how much power are we generating with wind? How much power with nuclear? How much power with solar? How much power with coal or gas? That's something that I think would work really well, because, you know, a lot of the times, and this is one of the issues that we can talk at the end, we take this game as a city management game, and in the end it ends up being a little bit more of a city builder game, city painter game, which there's nothing wrong with it, right? And again, you play the game as you want, just like I do. But I think that some of those things are missing in this game, you know, that being able to see your city, what's working, what's not. SimCity 3004 did it great with the advisors, with the department advisors. And so I do believe that that's something that has a lot of room for improvement. Another thing that I think we got a notice here, disasters. As far as I can tell, there's only 2 disasters. It's either the tornado, which happens very often, so these people must live in Kansas, and the fires, which, you know, sometimes having a fire outside, I mean, there's nothing you can do. So that's something also that's kind of interesting, but there's no variety. Of course, we had a DLC with in City Skylines 1. Might as well not put any disasters, right? I mean, you could have done at least, at the very least, an earthquake. You know, an earthquake, tornado, and fires. I think that works well, but the tornado just happens all the time, and also the way the city reacts, the economy reacts when people are being evacuated. It's so extreme, so weird. And so I think that, again, I don't think that this game does justice to having disasters. I think that's also one of the issues that they should work on. And also, in a way, vehicle variety. And I know that if you build a, let's say, police station from, you know, Europe, from the French region pack or the German region pack, it's gonna look, that the police car is gonna look different than the regular North American, or the, you know, the Southwest, Northeast. But I still think that we should have more variety for public transportation vehicles. Once again, I know that's something that was added into the game later for City Skylines 1, and we also had a content creator pack, if I'm not mistaken. But the fact that we only have technically 2, but it's really 1 bus, like, why cannot, you know, why was it so difficult to add a smaller bus for different routes, or a school bus? The Southwest Northeast region pack would have been perfect to do a school bus prop to be used, right? And that doesn't happen. Same thing with the trams, you know, you can have different trams. Same thing with the subway. And that's something that I think it's also not working for the game. The fact that we need definitely more more variety when it comes to all these different transportation vehicles. And again, I think that what we have looks great. I know that I don't have the best setup, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the computer that I use, the laptop. Oh, and it's nice to see that they run over the taxi. I also think that taxis need to be definitely made a little bit better, or there needs to be a way that we don't allow taxis just to pick up people anywhere, right? Or maybe we can designate areas where that doesn't happen, because that also creates traffic. I know that's something that a lot of people don't consider, but that is true. And finally, for this group of complaints, I'm gonna add maps. We only have the same amount of maps that we had when this game was released almost 2 years ago. And that's a little bit frustrating, because you play, well, first of all, really quick, this glitch of the sign. I don't know what's missing, right? So it would be nice to know. But the fact that we don't have other maps, that we have the same amount of maps that we had 2 years ago, I mean, maybe at least release one map with the region pack, maybe a map from the Southwest, maybe a Houston map, a Dallas map, San Antonio map, Corpus Christi map, if you want to do with, if you want to have more to do with the with the sea industries. North, East, maybe a New York, maybe a Washington, something. And I think that was a big mistake, right? Not having more maps, because that also limits the gameplay that you're gonna have. And sure, I downloaded this map from the mods. I played other maps, but sometimes they don't work. Like, for example, we were talking about how a lot of people have been adding quote unquote
Road maintenance services have already
beaches into their maps
but if you're
like
planning a
this.
quick trip
And
out,
so
you might
sometimes
want to wait a little while until everything
you
clears
have the
up.
shoreline and you want to change it, you want to delete this, because really it's kind of useless for what you wanted to do for the gameplay. And you cannot do it because this surface encompasses different tiles. And so you cannot delete a surface that's on a different tile that you haven't unlocked, right? And so that happened to me with a map that I downloaded, and I I just had to stop playing with that map because it wasn't gonna work.
Thanks,
And
James.
that bothered me because I also play the game without having everything unlocked. That's something that challenges my gameplay and my style, right? If you want to have everything unlocked at the beginning, that's great. That's on you. And like I keep saying every single time, you play the game the way that you want to play it, the way that works for you, the way that you enjoy playing the game, right? I cannot tell you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, because it doesn't. It's not how I want things to be perceived. To the contrary. But for me, I don't do that. So there's a lot of stuff that you're restrained when you download maps from the mods, right? There's a lot of issues that you have. Sometimes those maps don't have, and then at the beginning you don't realize that, but then you're like, oh, so they didn't put any in here. We do have them, right? We have a lot of outside connections, but there's one, that same one that I was talking about with the sand surface. There was no connection for air, right? And so that's kind of weird, and it's still something that we need maps, right? We need more maps, even if it's gonna be a content creator pack that you're gonna charge for, or a DLC. I think at this point we want more. But let's go into the third group that we're going to talk about, and those are the issues that actually work in this game. First of all, and I think it is the biggest and most important one, I feel like the proportions of this game are way more real than Cities Skylines 2. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you have a building here and you have another one next to it, maybe of a different size or different zone, they actually look like they could actually be next to each other, right? You could see this big hospital in front of this medium zone building, right? Same thing with these huge windmills. They seem very realistic in the size. Not only that, but the proportions of this type of buildings, such as the rail yard, the subway yard, the bus station, that you actually need to expand them in order to have more capacity. Those modular buildings, like for example in here, and of course there's a limit, right? There has to be a limit, and I think some of these buildings need to have more limits, similar to what SimCity 2013 does, right? You can only build 4, and that's it, because that's also realistic. And so again, I think the proportion of this game is just great, way better than Cities Skylines 1. Cities Skylines 1, for as great that it is, it brought back the city simulator genre back from the kind of ashes that it was at. And I feel that the buildings, the designs were good, but they were a bit too much, right? They were kind of like fantasy or something like that, and it didn't just look, those buildings didn't look like that great, and the proportions look off. For example, in here, where do we have here we go. So in here we have tall buildings that have 288 households in one building. Sometimes I don't think those tall high density buildings in Cities Skylines 1 had more than maybe 8 households, sometimes 4 or 12, I think, at the most. That, I think, is something that bothered me all the time, and that's something that this game fixed, and that's something that we should be glad that happened. Again, because you have this little building that has 24 households, then you have this one that has 300, right? You have this one that has, that's an office building. But this one, again, that has 286, 96, 432. That type of realism is what Cities Skylines 1 was missing. Realism. And not only by adding a realistic number of households in buildings, but also by having railroad yards that have a set number of trains that you can actually have, bus depots where you actually have a set number of buses that you can have, tram yards, I think that's what it's called, yeah. Tram depots where you only have a certain number, and sure, you can expand it, but there's only a certain number. I think that is just perfect, because again, that adds realism, and that adds a challenge to the game, a natural challenge to the game. This is not something that was just added because the Cities Skylines 2. No, it's more realistic, because that's how things really are. You cannot have a bus depot in Houston and have unlimited buses just come out of it, because that doesn't work. You don't go to New York and have an unlimited number of subways available, because that's not how it works. Or go to Germany and have an unlimited number of trains, because that's not how things work. And I think this is one of the greatest accomplishments of this game, the proportions and the realism of the city. Because of course, you can have all the suburbs or all the neighborhoods that you want, but they actually make sense in their size, right? You can actually see something like this being built in front of a house, because both can coexist, and both do coexist on different places in the world. But at the same time, it's more realistic and it's more real. All of these things, right? So I feel like that's great, and it makes Cities Skylines 2 in that regard a better game than Cities Skylines 1. It's more realistic, and when you're talking about a city builder, a city painter, city simulator, the more realistic you can find all these different things that work better in this game. And last but not least, I also think that the way to lay down roads works better. I know that, again, you have mods in Cities Skylines 1 where you can definitely do all these things, right? But it has to be native. And it has to be native because I should not have, once again, to download something to make the game work better. That should be part of what the developers are doing, right? And if they're not doing it, then there's something wrong with that. That doesn't mean that they have to fix everything right away or that everything needs to be perfect, right? That's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, I cannot fix something that I shouldn't have to fix. It's not my work, it's not my job to download an asset so that the game works the way that it should. And I think this works really well. Another thing that works really well that I think for now is the specialized industry. I feel like, thankfully, the resources don't deplete as fast as they used to back in Cities Skylines 1, because in Cities Skylines 1, you would put a oil drilling and all that stuff in there, and it would deplete very, very fast. And in here, as you can see, there's still a lot. Let me see if I can get it to work. Right, there's still a lot of oil in here. It is depleting, but it's taking a while. Same thing here with these, with the ore. Like, it is depleting and it will deplete, but it's taking longer, and that is great. I like the fact that we have livestock that you can put anywhere. That we have vegetable, grain. We have basically cotton or textile fiber farming. We have forestry. Stone mining, which actually is an interesting one. We have coal mining, ore, and oil drilling. And the update will have offshore drilling, if I'm not mistaken, the one from October 28th. So I'm looking forward to that, because again, it doesn't make any sense to have maps where you have oil on the water and you cannot take advantage of that. Which I think that the industries deals in Cities Skylines 1 did really, really well. Overall, I think that this game in the past 2 years has been getting a whole lot better. Definitely, there's no doubt in my mind that this game got a lot better. But I also think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done in order for this game to get to where Cities Skylines 1 is at right now. I really was gonna make this video before the Netherlands region pack got released, and then it got released, and I'm like, okay, let me wait just a little bit. And then I read the news about the new update, the new sea industries and all that, and I'm like, okay, let me wait just a little bit and put my thoughts together again. And I feel that this game, the developers have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of stuff that's missing, a lot of stuff that should have been implemented at the beginning. And in the end, I think we can all agree that Cities Skylines 2 was released at least a year before it should have been released. Cities Skylines 2 should have been released at the very least this year or last year, but definitely not in 2023 the way that it was originally again released in 2023. It just didn't work. It had a lot of bugs. It had a lot of issues. There was no we didn't have enough variety in architecture. Even SimCity 4 had variety, 4 different types of buildings that you could build. And this game only had 2, right? And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's something that we all waited for. We supported City Skylines 1 by buying the game, by buying the DLCs, by buying the content creator packs, the little things here and there that were free, the updates, of course. We supported the game, and some of you still support it. Some of you will not play this game. Some of you will only play City Skylines 1, and that's great. But for the ones that are still playing the game, because it's not only me, and I know there's some YouTubers that have said, they're not going to play the game, this or that. That's on them, right? I personally, like I mentioned, I don't think I can go back to City Skylines 1 and just play it as if nothing happened, because there's a lot of things that this game has. First and foremost, medium density zones, right? Not for everything, but at least for residential, which does say a lot, has a lot of good things. And so I don't think I could go back like that, just like that. And so I was gonna say that Cities Skylines 2 was forgotten, right? That they abandoned, basically. And these last 2 weeks have proved me wrong. First of all, to know that there's still people that are passionate about this game, because again, I feel like the realism of this game makes it better over Cities Skylines 1, definitely. But what detracts from this game are the bugs, are the issues with the game. Sure, performance, but again, it's a game that requires a whole lot more than Cities Skylines 1. The variety that's been fixed. No bicycles, no parks. There's still a lot of things that can be improved, and so there's only better things for this game. There can only be better things for this game than bad things. The more updates that the developers do, that's gonna be great. The more they do to make this game better, it's gonna work. You can only go up, basically, and they've been going up, unfortunately, little by little, a little bit too slow, in my opinion. And I think that's the issue with a lot of people that have abandoned this game. To those of you that have done so, give it a try. Make sure that you have your game updated, that you have downloaded every single region pack available for free in the mod section, and that you take your time to truly enjoy how this game works. It's working better. It's gonna continue to work better. And again, I'm saying this based on what we have been promised by the developers. And so I still enjoy playing this game. Not only do I have a new Paris, which is the series that we have with you all, but I have this city and another city that I play for myself, because first and foremost, I like to play Cities Skylines 2. And I do want it to get better, because I want to continue enjoying this game for the next couple of years. SimCity 1 is 10 years old, and I don't see why this game cannot go another 8. So definitely doable. We just need focus from the developers and the publisher for this game. And so, almost 2 years after its release, almost, or before we do that October 28th update, is this game better than it was at the beginning when it was released in October 2023? Of course it is. Definitely it is. It has improved a lot with performance, with bugs, and with the variety in buildings and architecture in here. Does it have a lot of things that it needs to improve? Sure. Bugs, variety, gameplay, but there's a lot of stuff that it does well. And the main thing that it does is the realism. You have more realistic proportions. You have buildings that have limits as to how many how many assets it can produce, in this case, for example, trams. And we definitely need bicycles. We definitely need beach, at least a beach asset, sorry, and definitely park zones, along with a lot of other stuff. But it's better. It's better than in 2023. It keeps getting better, and if the developers deliver, this game will continue to get better. But it's gonna take a while until it reaches the height that Cities Skylines 1 has as of this moment. Again, just going through this street, just great, you know. Again, if you haven't played this game, play it again. Download at least the French region pack and the Southwest region pack if you want to do your little neighborhoods, your little suburbs. And so, Cities Skylines 2 is not great. It's getting there, and that's, I think, the timeline for this game as of right now, before the October 28th, 2025 up. And so, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that this game just doesn't work at all? Leave your comments. Don't forget to like this video, to subscribe, to continue watching the new Paris series, and we'll see each other in our next video. Stay safe and take care.